plastic attachments, it just doesn't give a nice smooth cut. A lot of the times you have to go over, with the plastic attachments, you have to go over so many times because they don't get it all the way cut. So they're not a very precise tool. That's why I kind of lean away from them. So now I'm going to switch back to the 3 3/4 again. And I'm just going to go through and fade this in a little bit. I know everyone's probably staring at this piece right here, right now, so let me get that. Unless you want to call them alfalfa, which is not the case here. So what I meant by going over it one more time was kind of just going over it with clipper over comb, kind of taking care of those loose ends and blending together a little bit more. If we get the top of the length that we want it, we know exactly that we have to go from 1/2 inch down to 0. Okay, now that we're at this stage, I think I want to go in with the 1 1/2 blade to kind of blend out this line to start with. So here's the number 1, the 1 1/2. If you notice a great difference between the 3 3/4 and the 1 1/2 blade, the 1 1/2 blade is a lot skinnier than the 3 3/4, so therefore it's going to be a lot shorter. Here we go. We put them on just like this here, and we're ready to go. Now, if you notice, I'm kind of using a rocking motion here. This peels off like this. That means that this hair will be longer than the hair down here because I'm not cutting that hair, but I am cutting the hair down here. So this is the part, when I was watching people do fades all the time, I was always trying to wonder, well, what are they doing? It just looks like they're scrubbing their head or they're trying to, I never could figure it out. It didn't look like they were cutting any hair, but if you notice, the hair is getting cut, and that line is becoming more and more faint. Maybe I'm putting in a new line right here, but I can blend that out just as well. So it's that rocking motion, leaning it mostly on the heel of the blade. So we're coming out like this. And the blades are always going to be different for whosever hair you're doing. If he has fine hair, you might use longer blades. If he wants a shadow fade meaning this is longer, like maybe a 5 o'clock shadow length right here, rather than skin, you might use longer blades. But for this haircut, I'm using a 1 1/2 right here, and this is maybe a 2, and this is a 4. See, that color contrast is a difficult thing to think about because if you make any mistakes up here, if you make a hole right here or anything, somehow gouge that, that light skin is going to shine through like a flashlight. So you got to watch that. If he has really light hair, light skin, then the fade is easy. Or dark hair, dark skin, the fade's easy. But this color contrast will throw you off. But it's kind of nice to cut hair like this because then you can notice it'll make you work harder because you're trying to blend the colors together. And I think that's great practice too. So now I'm going back in with the 2 blade. Going back in with a 2 blade right here. I'm just going to touch that line up I just made. I just put a line in there with the 1 1/2, so I'm going to take that out right now. And now is when I use the plastic number 1. So I'm putting it on the 0 setting with the plastic number 1. And it's the same motion. We're just rocking it. I don't know if you can actually hear the hair being cut, but it doesn't look like much is happening, but we're actually fading out that line a little bit more. And there's so many different variations of the fade. There's the shadow fade, the skin fade, high and tight, which is the more of the military look when it's really high up here. You just have a little bit of hair on top. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Now I'm using the number 1, but I'll probably back it off just a little bit, so it might be in the middle of 0 and 1. And at this point, I'm going to switch my comb to a small brush. This brush not only can get all those little small hairs and comb it down, but it picks up the loose hairs that you've already cut. And sometimes those loose hairs can throw you off because you think, well, there's hair right there, and you try cutting it, but it's actually hair that's already on the head, so we're just going to use the brush to take those off. Do you see there's the hair? And we can take it off. And sometimes this can be a difficult cut if you're doing someone's hair and they have the big ridge back here and you have to get inside there and kind of cut some of that ridge out. Now that we're done with that, I'd like to go over again with the size 2 and just see if there's any hairs that need to be cut. It seems like we're doing okay. I just kind of do this just to go over it once more, just to see. And I can go with the 1.5 once again. Just kind of glide along, make sure there's no heavy spots in there. We'll go back again with the 3 3/4 blade. See if there's anything up here. And you know, at this point again, you can just kind of see what you want. Maybe you see a heavy spot or a dark spot you think might need to be cut a little more. Go ahead and cut it some more. And now the final trick is we're going to take the trimmers. Now these are equivalent to the triple aught, you know, 4-0 or 3-0. These are all the way down to the skin. The next step from here would be like a Bic razor, something that would just shave all the way to the skin. But we're going to stay low with this. And we're just going to go through here. This is just going to make it just a little tighter for us. And the sideburns as well, we're just going to stay low. Because we want this to graduate. We want this to go from 0 to 1 to 1.5 to 2, 3.5 up to 4. Just going to blend together some of this a little bit more with the blending shears, the 40 tooth. Once again, we're just going to just touch up the ends here. Not going to take much. If we're going to see a heavy line where there was a line, maybe through here there was a line, so we just might want to just touch that area just a little more. But remember to stay on the tips. You don't want to go too much. And over here in the back, we see his cowlick goes this way. So we're going to come at it this way here. Just work against it. Cut some of that down. Maybe over here as well. I'll turn you this way. Now this grows forward, so we're going to come at it this way. And all we're doing is just touching this just a little bit. And if you notice, in the front here, he's got kind of a cowlick that jumps this way, kind of falls forward. So what I'm going to do is kind of compensate a little bit by cutting some of these guys, some of these hairs right here down a little bit. You can't really do enough of it with the blending shears. So I'm going to go back with the regular shears and go through here and just kind of hit that a little bit. And that would kind of give us a little more symmetrical look to it, because you wouldn't want a big piece of hair coming all the way down here. This is a great way to do the top. If you have them look down just like this, it'll be just like doing scissor over comb on the back of the head. I suggest starting out with somebody who wants to shave their head. You know, like, I want to shave my head completely bald. Well, then just practice the fade. Then you can always shave their head. Okay, this cut that I'm going to be doing is going to be a clean cut, but it's not going to be boring or conservative. It's going to be short around the sides and back. We're going to leave a natural neckline, leave a taper in the back. And the top's going to be going in different directions, kind of loose, kind of rough and choppy. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to be using the razor. It's kind of a fun technique. We're just going to pick up the hair and just cut through like this. Well, what we want to do, one secret here is that we want to leave those corners long on the edges. We're going to leave the corners, we're going to leave the bangs. Kind of think of a flat top that's grown out and a little bit choppy. So that's what we're going to do. But first, I like to start in the back, like always. And I'm going to use the detachable clippers, which are right here. And I'm going to put the large blade on, the 3 3/4 blade. And it's just going to be up and off the top of the hair. The thing I like about the detachable clippers is that they provide so much speed and accuracy. And I'm not even trying at all. There's no really thought involved. You just kind of push it up and go straight across here. And you can see how smooth that lines up. First swipe. You don't have to go over it 10 times. It's just going to be nice and clear. We just run this right across the sideburns and straight up. That'll ensure that the sideburns are the same length as the top. Okay, now that we have the sides and back pretty much the length that we want, I'm going to do a little scissor over comb on this crown area right here. Now, since we're thinking of a flat top that's grown out and kind of choppy and rough, let's keep our comb nice and vertical, just like this. We can go ahead and cut. But if you think about it, we want to have it nice and choppy and kind of rough. So we can go in this way and point cut. So if we go in there and point cut just like this, we're still having the comb vertical, but it's a choppy kind of cut rather than a real smooth cut. So it doesn't have to be totally perfect on the sides here. And this is a great cut for you if you're starting out doing short haircuts like this. This is a good cut because it's really forgiving. You can do a lot with it. It doesn't have to be precision, really perfect haircut. Get the back here a little bit. Same thing in the back. Go through and get some length off, scissor over comb. And then we can go through and chop it up a little bit. But if you're going to do this, instead of coming straight in like this, you're going to miss a lot of the hair. So we're going to come in at an angle. This way we can catch more of the hair and make it a little more choppy. Okay, now that we've somewhat blended in the sides here a little by doing scissor over comb, but remember, it's not perfectly scissor over comb. We're kind of chopping it up a little bit. All right, now in order to use the razor, that technique, let's water down the hair first. Make sure your squirt bottle has at least 7 different bright colors. And let's go ahead with the razor. We're going to comb all this forward. And with the razor, we can have a lot of fun with it. We're just going to push this out. Now I'm leaving the bangs the longest on this cut. This is kind of a choppy, fun, kind of low maintenance cut here. So we can go in through here. But if you notice, I'm kind of leaving the bangs long. I'll pull these up, but I won't really cut them. I'm cutting this hair. So for this cut, we're going to leave the top long right through here. This is going to be the longest part in our cut. And back here, it's going to kind of slope back a little bit. So it's going to be up here. The corners are going to be left. The top's going to be left. But back here, let's just have some fun with it and just cut some of these pieces out. It's going to be rough, choppy, kind of messy. And it's a real easy haircut for him to take care of, too. He just wakes up in the morning, push some stuff in it. Any kind of gel, pomade, anything he really likes, he can use. But we just want to make sure we don't have any really wild hairs that are just too out of proportion. And if we want to get more height in the hair, if we want to get it even more choppy and sticking up more, we can take our blending shears all the way down to the root area. This is the only time I ever recommend going down to the root area. But what that does is cuts really, really short, tiny hairs in here that'll pop up like this and hold the longer hairs up. So those longer hairs will kind of fly out more. So we can come right down to the root area here. But we don't want to do it too much because then all we'll see is scalp. So we want to have that kind of choppiness in there that'll stick up. We don't want to do too much though. See, not a lot of hair comes off, but enough to give it some more volume. And this haircut today is accepted in the business world and in the office because of its clean cut sides and back. The top's kind of messy and kind of choppy, and I guarantee you'll see this haircut all over the place because there's so many different variations that you can do with this haircut. You can leave the top really long and choppy, you can leave the sides even choppy around the ears if you wanted to, and then we could also leave it shorter and choppy. We can have like a Caesar cut going forward and choppy. Now that we're pretty much around done with the haircut, you see how it looks here, and we can see we can do anything we want with it. The only thing we don't want to do when we style it is comb everything down forward and stick up the back, because then it looks like you walked under a low roof. So we want to stick everything in the front up, and everything else can kind of lay down. And if there's any excess hairs that you don't like, maybe you want to cut some of these more, do something else, kind of fine tune it along the way, anything you want to do. Remember, it doesn't have to be exact. If it's exact, you're doing a different haircut. One thing that's really nice about this cut, though, is if you wanted to, you could also wear it really conservative. Like if he's going to church with his grandmother, we could part it all off to the side, and he could still pull that off. But then when he goes out at night and he goes partying, he's a wild man. Now we're going to put a little bit of a little bit of pomade in there. Mostly you want to put the pomade kind of in the front, kind of sticking up the front area. And you don't have to focus so much on the sides. We're just going to get that front area to stick up, and then we can push this any way we want. But just remember when you're doing this cut, not to do the sides and back choppy, because then it look like you messed up. So the sides and back are real smooth, tapered, nice and clean around the ears, and the top's choppy, messy, and going different directions. So that's it for this cut. I hope you enjoyed it, and don't be afraid to get into it. Thanks. Now I'm going to switch back to the 3 3/4 again. Jesus. We can also see what's going to be. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, Morgan. Damn. You all right?
Yeah, man. That's cool. Another release form.
I'm glad it wasn't the scissors, man.